All right, I know people are gonna continue to trickle in here, Chris, but I think that we should get started because we have an action-packed um, lineup today, and I wanna make sure that we have time to get through everything. So you guys, good morning to our February State of the Industry. As usual, we're going to launch this thing with a couple of market stats. We're going to have two incredible interviews from some top agents in our network. We're going to round out the day with an awesome presentation from Chris. So one of the things that we're going to focus on today with your local stats is gosh, Chris, I had to put some work into the stats today. For those of you in the Portland metro area, you know that our RMLS stats are not out, so Eugene and Portland Metro. So you know what? That doesn't stop the show, just like your businesses don't stop. We went out, we got that information for you, and we're going to present some pretty interesting statistics today. Of course, in our Salem area and our Southern Oregon area, your stats are out, so I'll be referencing those stats. Now, the difference that we're going to do today is we are going to keep this hyper local. I know most of you are probably signed up for family reunion next week, which means that you will get to witness the always much anticipated vision speech from Gary Keller, which will be Tuesday morning. So he's going to give you the entire rundown of what is going on in our entire industry in that macro view. So today we're going to keep it local. We're going to keep it what's happening in our MLSs. So we're going to launch into it. So where are we today? Well, like I said, Portland Metro and RMLS stats are not out. So I started with just a reminder of where we ended January, or where we ended 2020. So you guys would have some reference, and then pulled out some key stats that I wanted to focus on. So as we closed out December 2020, we were sitting there with 0.8 months of inventory in the Portland metro area. Now, December was a really interesting month. And as you guys see, I left that December stats from the MLS in there. And one of the things that set December apart is we had some unseasonably high statistical numbers, right? With 37% increase in listings in December, 13% increase in pending sales in December, and closed sales up 26%. As we've kind of watched our transactions and had communication with our agents and our reviewing brokers over the last month, we couldn't quite put all the numbers together. So I wanted to pull out some stats that I thought were really kind of cool. So I put together that top stat box, which is your January 2021 numbers. So you can see the great news in Portland Metro is that we had a significant increase in listings in January over December, right? 36.7%, almost 639 more homes hit the market in the month of January. So that is fantastic news. Now, it is still significantly less than what we saw in January of 2020. So almost 14% less than we would normally see in a January timeline. What's really interesting is we go now to our pending sales. They're up 13% over last year, 28% over the month of December. And then our closed sales, this is where our stats get interesting, is only 1,880 closed sales in the month of January, as opposed to 2,789 closed sales in December. So what is going on? What we're looking at was a historically high listing number in December. What we were saying on a local basis wasn't showing up into our closed transaction count. So one of the things that we were talking about is why do you think that is, right? And I've been able to think about 3 different things that could affect this number where our higher listing count is not necessarily translating to that closed transaction, right? So 2,789 closed home in December, only 1,880 in the month of January. Now, still higher than we were last January, but possibly, Chris, that we had people with urgency that wanted to close out their homes in December and were expediting those closings to make sure that they were in their properties by the end of 2020, possibly. The other thing it could be is that we just have longer escrows, right? So that we've traditionally seen. So those homes that we put into escrow in that December timeline didn't show up as closings in January. Or the third thing that we are really looking at, and we've been talking to our reviewing brokers about, is how many of our escrows are actually sticking. So when I looked at that number, we had 433 homes back on market in the month of January. So if we were to go back and say 2003 pendings in December and 433 of them fell out in January, that's a 21% if off of that number of homes that came back on the market. Now, what's even more interesting is that back on market isn't necessarily reflecting all of the homes that never came actually back on the market because they had multiple offers and never came out of a pending state. So in summary, absolutely fascinating stats. So what I'm taking away from our stats coming out of the Portland metro area is guys, great news. We had a lot of homes hit the market. However, it's not going to show up in our inventory levels, right? Because 2,379 homes hit the market, more than we have seen. However, 2,574 of them went pending. So we are expecting that inventory level to continue to be driven down. And one of the things where last month we talked on the insatiable buyer need fed by those low interest rates, the next part in that conversation that we're going to be really looking at this month, Chris, is number 1, setting expectations so we don't have as many sale fails, and 2, really bulletproofing that transaction. So really fascinating stats. Chris, like, did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the only other thing I would add is this is, and it doesn't matter where your market is. We're just using some numbers. They happen to be in Portland. They could have been in St. Louis. These are the numbers that I look at. Let's go back to December. We took 1,740 listings, right? We being the city. We pended 2,000 of those, and we closed 2,800 of them, right? The 2,800 closed because of the activity that happened in October, what got listed in October and November. December, our new listings dropped from both October and November. December was this low point for us, which translates into the closed numbers in January. And that's just cyclical, right? People didn't want to put their home on the market in December. Some people pulled their home off the market for December and the holidays. Now look what happens in January. Listings jump up from December, right, back to 2,400. We penned 2,600 of them, right? We're at about 150 plus 200 homes over new listings every single month, and then we close 1,880. Like, that to me tells me that anything that gets listed will get sold. And so we as an industry create our own future of closed sales based on what we list. So when we think, wow, we had new listing inventory show up in Portland, anyone that's in that market didn't feel it. You didn't realize it. It didn't feel that way at all. In fact, it felt probably tighter in January than it did in December. But that's only because our market is an exact result of the listing inventory we're bringing on. It's one of the reasons why, Leslie, you're going to talk to people that are focused on listings today on our call. That is, I think, the most important thing to realize. It's the listings that we take are going to sell.
I love it. And yeah, Colleen, I see 10 transactions in January bumping to February, right? So once again, looking at what is happening in our industry. We're going to go to Lane County, you guys. You ended the year with 0.6 months of inventory. Well, the great news is that you took listings in January. You were less than January of 2020, almost 46% more than we did in December. But I don't have good news for you on the inventory front there either, right? You took 382 listings and you pended 542 of them. You closed 375. So still a very similar story to what we just kind of talked about in that Portland metro area playing out in Eugene. You had 63 back on markets down there. You once again had an unseasonably high December in your new listings, sale pending, and closed sales. One of the things that I think is fascinating out of yours is, gosh, look at those pending sale numbers. You guys, inventory is still going to be the big buzz down in Eugene, in that Lane County area, 52% increase in pending sales and almost an 84% increase in pending sales over December of 2020. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where your inventory levels go as you continue to see really, really, really low, not necessarily no houses hitting the market, but you're once again buyers soaking it up faster than we can get them on the market. Now Salem, right? Colleen, you chimed in there, so you are contributing to that in Salem. So what? Same thing. Look, you had 10 homes pushed to February. You guys are ended January with 1.35 months of inventory. That was down from 1.38 months of inventory. So similar inventory rate between December and January. What's really interesting there is you had 1,416 homes that went pending in the month of December, and only 722 ended up as closed transactions in January. So just about half of the homes that we pended in that December timeline ended up as full closed transactions in January. Once again, largely because of bump transactions, longer escrow times, and that significant sale fail rate that we're looking at. Your new listings, you did have more. Once again, you're soaking them up faster than you can. But wow, what an increase that we are seeing in average sales price. A year ago today, you were at 328. You're now sitting at 385 as your average sales price. And one of the most fascinating things that came out of the Salem area is in the month of December, your average list to sale price was 101.37%. So we were getting on average higher than our list price. That list to sales price dropped in the month of January, even with your diminished inventory levels. So you're sitting now at 98.5% of your list to sales price. So just an interesting statistic in that we're still seeing that lower inventory level, and that isn't necessarily driving escalated prices, or the consumer is not willing to pay more for those houses than they're necessarily listed for. Now, Jackson and Josephine County, you guys, a similar story down there, except your graphs look a little bit differently. Jackson, your inventory levels, like that graph says it all, right? Like they are continuing to go down. Listings going on market, buyers soaking up, insatiable buyer need. You dropped from 1.09 months of inventory in December to 0.91 in January. One of the things that I looked at here is your days on market is down to 6. So gosh, like what a tight market. And of course, it is driving up that median income, or that median list price. Josephine County, once again, your map is similar. You had a slight bump in your listing number in January, but once again, your total inventory rate dropped from 1.14 to 0.99. So I guess Southern Oregon, we get to say welcome to the party of the sub 1 month of inventory level. Not necessarily a club that you want to be part of, but that is where you guys are landing. One of the huge things that we're looking at Southern Oregon is look at how that has driven up your average and median prices. In Jackson County, you're up average of 19.23% for the year and up 14.65 for median. And average price in Josephine County, you guys are up 22.26% and median sales price up 22.74%. So where does that leave us? I think Chris hit it on the head. The constant conversation that we're going to be having in 2021 is controlling your business through listings, and really focusing on those listings. That's the only way to drive your business, to control your business. We're going to continue to talk to agents that are succeeding in that realm, as well as talk to some top agents on how they are accomplishing that. I think we covered it all as stats. Chris, anything else that you would add to that lineup?
I think you're good. I think, it's the only reason why we look at numbers is to help us, one, appreciate, well, I think there's two reasons. The first one is to understand why we feel like we feel, right? Why we feel tired, why we feel like we're working harder, why we feel like, why our buyers feel the way that they do, why our sellers clearly are not feeling as good as they should or as confident as they should to move forward at times. But the other reason to look at numbers is to inform us on where we should focus and where we should put our energy and where we should focus our budgets and what conversations we should have and where we should skill up. And so much of that obviously is an inventory conversation and will continue to be probably for the next 5 or 6, 7 months. I had a conversation with an agent, one of the top agents in the city, not a KW agent, and I was just actually making some calls and looking for some inventory that may not be coming. And it was interesting to me. She said, I have 9, which was phenomenal, right? I have 9 options. And those options were not here yet because the weather hasn't allowed her to get photography. And I just was thinking last night, well, gosh, I wonder if once we start getting some blue skies and once people actually get their photos done, if we won't see a bump of inventory. Now that won't affect our pricing, it won't affect our values, but it may affect just a little bit of relief for our buyers and making sure that our buyers don't get tired and tap out right before the inventory shows up. So I think that's an interesting conversation, but also a lesson for us to be reaching out to agents that historically do business in neighborhoods in which we're looking as well.
I love it, Chris. And one of the things we're really going to be doing within the network and at a market center level is using these numbers to tell the story, and then making sure that we're giving you the tools and resources to help guide your business, whether that is mastering going after listings. We had masterminds around how to win in multiple offer situations. We're going to continue to have masterminds around setting expectations for both of our sellers and our buyers in this unique market. So please take these stats, use them to have conversations with your clients, as well as to assess what skills or tools you're going to need, because we are looking at these every day, and your executive leadership team is really making sure we're bringing you critical information right now to help support you in those skills. All right, so we are going to move on to our agent interviews today. So we are so excited. We have 2 incredible agents on the line today that really had a fantastic 2020. So we're going to bring them to you and start having some conversation. Galand Haas out of Eugene, Springfield. Are you with us this morning?
I'm here, Leslie. How you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Let's talk about this. Galand, you are 31 years in the real estate industry and an icon down in Eugene. So, right? Did I get that right? 31 years?
Yeah, yep, 31 years. Hard to believe.
So you closed out 2020, 64 units, 30 of those listings, 34 of those buyers. So you're operating around at that 50% between buyers and sellers. But one of the things that we talk a lot about fundamentals in a business, and consistency over time, right? Time on task over time. And if I were to choose one person in our network that exemplifies this concept of consistency, that would be you. And we're going to learn a little bit about that today. And you're going to specifically talk about how you have built your database, nurtured your database, and fed your database over time through your touch campaign. So we talked a lot in 2020 about getting in touch with our database, but this is something that you've been doing consistently for over 20 years. So tell us a little bit about your mindset around your touch campaign.
Okay. Well, you know, what I always like to talk about first is the fact that most agents really overcomplicate real estate. It's a lot easier than what we think. And if you do some basic things, you can't help but be successful. And one of them, that I think if you talk with most top agents and you ask them, where does most of your business come from? And where has most of your business come from over time? They're going to tell you the same thing. It's come from my database, from my sphere of influence, from past clients, from contacts. And so to start out with, this is something that's very interesting to me. I was down in Orlando speaking about 3 weeks ago. There was a group of about 400. And one of the things I asked them, I said, would everybody raise their hands? Everybody that has a database raise their hands? Guess what? There's about 150 of them that didn't raise a hand. They don't even have a database. My thought is, how can you be in business and not have a database, especially in the real estate industry? So the number one thing is that you have to have a database. And at Keller Williams, we're really fortunate because we have Command now. It's so easy to have a database. Now that I have a database, what do I need to do? I need to have contacts. I need to have my sphere of influence. I need to have people that I can get in touch with, because guess what? This is where my business is going to come from. So one of the things that I've done, and as you mentioned, Leslie, I've been doing this for over 20 years. I have a daily goal of adding people to my database. So right now my goal is to add 3 people every single day to my database. And I ask my team to do the same thing every day, add people to my database. Now, what happens is I do this. I keep growing my database. And over time, I can have a sizable group of people that I have influence over by simply just continuing to add people into my database. It's not that hard to do. I mean, we meet people every day at the grocery store, standing in line at a clothing store, whatever it might be, at my kids' athletic events, whatever it might be. I'm always meeting new people or getting in touch with new people. And how hard is it really to add a couple new people into my database every day? So I think that's the basic thing that we need to do. We need to start the building of that database and work on it every single day. The other thing is, guess what we have to do? We got to keep in touch with our database. It doesn't do us any good to have a database if we don't keep in touch with people. And so that's what I think you were referring to, Leslie, that I've done for a long time, is I've put together a system of systematically keeping in touch with my database. And I know Keller Williams has 36 touch. And which means we're going to touch everybody in my database 36 times a year. That's 3 times a month. So I think that's the minimum that you need to keep in touch with your database 3 times a month. And truthfully, I keep in touch with my database a lot more than that. I'm probably right now, I keep in touch with every single person in my database, probably more like 5 to 6 times a month. My database, I actually have 2 different databases. The database that I keep in touch with regularly, the size of it's about 8,000. So, and a lot of you don't have an 8,000 person database, but believe it or not, it doesn't take you long to get there if you work on it every single day. I also have another database of internet leads that's about 20,000. So, and I work both of those databases and keep in touch with them regularly.
I think one of the things that's important to mention, Galand, because there's going to be people on this call that goes, oh my gosh, I don't have an 8,000. I don't have 20,000. But I think that the important piece that we want to take away is this is 20 years in the making of intentionally approaching that database of feeding it every single day. You didn't just show up one day and have 8,000 people to get the word out to, right?
Well, that's exactly right. But you stop and think about it. If I had 2 people a day to my database over a year's period of time, that's quite a few people. And also, it's not that hard. If my goal is 2, it's not hard to exceed that, because what, we're going to be doing business with people they're going to be put into my database. I'm going to be meeting new people, so on. So, I mean, it's not hard to exceed that goal of 2. And over time, you start building a pretty sizable database. So again, the key to it is don't think that you can't do quite a bit of business if you've only got 200 or 300 people in your database, because you can. The biggest thing is you have to start developing relationships with them. Let them know you're in real estate. Keep reminding them in real estate, and keep your communication channels open with that number of people that are in your database.
Okay, Galand, I want to talk a little bit about, I actually coach agents all the time on the concept of the 36 touch campaign. And I love the fact that you said 36 is just the minimum, right? I did not pull up your examples but for those of you guys who are interested, we will provide some slides of what Galand actually does on a regular basis. And I think that's interesting. You said 5 to 6 touches. I counted up the number of touches and I came up with 84 touches that you are doing over the course of 12 months. Now, there's people on this call going, oh my gosh, that is a lot of touches in a year. So tell us a little bit about how you break that down over different mediums to connect with your database.
Yeah, so this is really the easy part. And the great thing is that everything that I do is a system. It isn't something that I just think about every single day. How am I going to get in touch with my database? I actually have a system of what we do over every single day, every single week, every single month. And so we hit it, as a result of that, we hit those 84 touches. So here's the biggest thing. And I'm going to hit on this is when you do this, when you set up your plan of how you're going to touch your contacts, your database, you have to be consistent with this. You can't do this for a week, for 2 weeks, for a month, and expect to see results of it. Where you start seeing results of this is when you do the same, you stick to your plan, you do the same thing day after day after day, month after month after month, year after year after year. And if you do that and you're consistent with it, the impact you have on that database and the influence you have over the people that are in your database is huge. So here's what we do. Number 1, email. Email is the easiest thing in.
Oh, you froze. Did he freeze for you, Chris? Yeah. Galand, you froze a little bit. So I'm gonna just go through really quickly and see if he can pop back on. I have him down for 52 weekly emails that he does to his database, 12 monthly emails. He also sends those direct mail, 2 bonus touches, which includes calendars and sporting events, minimum of 4 social media posts, including Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Google. And he calls his database a minimum of 2 times per year. There it is. 84 touches in a year, Chris. So we lost him.
One of the things that I posted in chat, because I think this is a wildly important conversation for us. Some of us check out when we hear the number, but I have always said that the day that I opened up the Red Book and said I was going to commit to building my business through the Red Book was it was based on building a business by adding 1 person to the database every year. Now I've gone out and said I said, well, I want to get there faster. So I added 2 people to the database every year. Like it was in my class, right? Model your way to $1 million. He actually did that pre-KW. Like he didn't have KW when he started, but when you look 30 years later, internet leads are one thing, but who he added to his core database, it was one a day, working days, right? 5 days a week for 30 years. And you fast forward, and then it's once you add, MREA says, great, you've added them, now systematically communicate with them. There's one of my favorite lines in MREA is your business will be, the size of your business will be dictated by the size of your database, and not just the size, but the size of your database and the relationship, the number of names in your database and the relationship you have with those names. Some of us feel, well, gosh, that's so many contacts. But remember, his 20,000 internet lead database is not getting 50 somewhat touches or 70 somewhat touches. The people that know him, have done business with him or engaged with his company or brand are getting those touches. And going back 20, 15 years when I first moved out to the West Coast, what I told you is I looked around and there was one guy that owned the town, and it was Galand. His signs were everywhere. And it was because he was so consistent. Pre-command, like he actually built a CRM back in the day just so that he could stay in touch with his database. So you don't need to be young, you don't need to be techie, you don't need to, like, it was so consistent, and he's never changed. And 30 years later, his business is consistent, and he sells his homes every single year.
Yeah, I love that, Chris. And for those of you who asked, I went ahead and kind of quickly put the synopsis of what his consistent plan has looked like for the last 20 years, right? Right. And I often say that consistency beats creativity every time. So if you're going to take anything away, it's systematize it, be consistent about it, feed it every day, and time on task over time. So, and that was his magic recipe that through those relationships, he was able to continue to drive that business forward in 2020, take a significant amount of listings as his business has been consistent year over year over year in production. All right. So that was our first guest of the day. I am excited to welcome our next guest as well, who's going to take this conversation. She had a totally different look on 2020 than Galand did, but also had some really cool things about how to connect with her database, as well as the mindset of approaching of 2020. So Carolyn Hoty, are you with us?
Hi there, I am. Hi, Leslie.
Hello, welcome. So, okay, Carolyn, you closed out 2020 with 66 units, 29 listings, 37 sales. But one of the things that we really talked about, and why I had to get on the phone with you, was you drove in a year where listings were difficult. You went from 18 listings sold to 29 listings sold. So that opened up our conversation of, gosh, like 66 units, 29 listings, huge increase in the listing count, over $36 million of closed volume. Wow. What was your mindset in 2020? You woke up January 1, 2020. Tell us about what you were thinking and then how that evolved and when March hit.
Absolutely. So in 2020, our team together really committed to a big stretch goal for us. We're a team of 5, 2 admin support people and 3 salespeople. And how we're structured is I run the listing side, and then I have 2 buyer's agents that take care of that side of the fence. And so we committed to helping 120 families. So a big stretch goal. So we had to think about who do we need to become and what do we need to do differently than what we did the previous years before. And so we knew we had to be strategic. We needed to be more systematic. We needed to really focus on our systems and our operations and be very intentional about what we were going to do that year. And we know after 15 years in business, 50% of our business comes, 50 to 60% of our business comes from those relationships that we've made through the years. And so we knew it was really important that we connected with them and added value to them in a way that spoke to as many of our people, our community as possible. So we made a plan. Besides we do as a team, we do a lot of client fun events with our community. And we made a plan to add in more focused educational presentations and rallying our allied resources around and circling them and highlighting them and having them support us in really bringing valuable real estate education to our people. We started at the beginning of the year with actually our first educational client event. We rented out Northwest Elephants Deli, and we brought in our lenders, our inspection partners, staging manager, and appraiser. And we did a panel and we titled it Protect and Grow Your Equity. And so we had a good turnout in the beginning of the year, good kickoff with that. We actually had 4 of those events planned all around different topics of, different subject matter. And we got great feedback out of the beginning of the year, had direct listings follow that. And then we decided we needed to continue to add presence with our team, with marketing and branding. So we hired GoDaddy Social in February 2020, obviously. And we had them posting more about our team, more real estate content, about 2 to 3 times a week. And we're also boosting our listings. We increased our postings from, we were doing about 3 times a month with posting e-newsletters, always real estate value add, marketing, neighborhood reports, and working with Becky, my marketing and director of operations. We took that up to 13 times a month. We brought in KCM articles, keeping current market articles, and we wanted to really keep our clients abreast of what was going on in our rapidly changing market.
So Carolyn, you started the year with this huge goal, right? Like, and this awesome plan, and you kicked it off with these large scale events, right? With the intent to continue to add that value and have that interaction with your database.
Right.
Now March hits, right? And one of the things that we talked about in preparation for this call, and I loved what you said, is where there's disruption, there's opportunity. So
Correct.
We had this plan in place. March happens. What happened with your mindset, and what pivot did you make as a team?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I will just say we were all thrown back. About 2 weeks, our team was just, we were flatlined, and we really had to rally. We really had to rally each other and say, okay, you know what? This is not going to be about us, but we have a large community that we committed and promised to serve, and it's about them. And so whatever they need right now, whatever their stories are going to be this year, whether it's they need to get equity out, whether it's a huge lifestyle disruption that they need to move, they need more spaces, whatever they need, we're going to now be there to be a part of their story and help them through their stories. And on top of that, we're going to go out and we're going to deliver joy. That was our mantra, is we're going to go out and deliver joy, because this year, this time, we need more joy than ever. So we went out and we rallied together, and we bought a boatload of bright colored daisies, potted daisies. We went out and made neighborhood maps, because I'm a believer of always adding real estate value into the fun. And we knocked on doors, and we texted them ahead of time to see what they're comfortable with, obviously keeping safety in mind. We spoke through windows, we spoke on porches, we stood on sidewalks, and and if they weren't comfortable with us, talking to us, we just left a beautiful plant and neighborhood map on their doors. Again, direct listing calls from those. Hey, you know what? We're relocating to California. Hey, you know what? Our house is too small. But those conversations, we had an opportunity to educate them that, hey, the housing market still was a great market, and how can we help them? And really just having a nice, warm, relationship building conversation around that. Another thing that we did in connecting with our database, then we couldn't do inside client events anymore, obviously. So we did reverse pop buys. we followed with the trend of the birthday drive-bys. And so we did 3 holiday events, again, thinking in terms of how do we have fun with our people in a way that's safe and, relevant and will be comfortable for our folks now. So we did a drive-by event at my home for Halloween. It was family focused. It was in the spirit of bringing joy. We also tied charity events to that so we could collaborate with them in thinking beyond ourselves and bringing joy outside of that. So with those drive-by events, we had big prizes, we had gifts, and even folks that didn't have kids dressed up. They came, they brought their fur babies, and it was just a fun way to, again, deliver joy.
I love that, Carolyn. And one of the things that we talked about is I know events have been a big question in a lot of our masterminds, and how do we serve our clients? And that comment of be part of their story. And the other thing that you said is, who do we need to be to help our clients with their new need, to provide direction to help, whether it was by their choice or by need. And you created a system where you could deliver joy despite the restrictions that we were having, instead of having those events, creating an experience that they could partake in. So you took your plan, it evolved, you made it work in 2020. It was obviously effective in creating connections and leading to business. What are you going to do differently? Or now that we've kind of mastered what this reverse pop by or this reverse event looks like, what do we layer on in 2021, or what do we continue?
Absolutely. So one of the things, again, in connecting with our community and serving and adding value is law of reciprocity. We need to spotlight and support them in their businesses. So we decided to reach out and do a theme each month, reach out to our community with local businesses and highlight and spotlight them and support them. So for example, this month, obviously it's the Hallmark Valentine's Day month. So we picked a local a florist in our community and called her up and said, hey, we'd love to highlight you in social media, put you on our team Facebook page, Evite, slide text, call our community, and we'll do a 10% promo code with you for your website, and we're going to rally our community to support you and highlight you. And so we're going to do that each and every month to support our own community and help them and give back and rally our communities to support each other.
I love that. So there you guys heard it. We got to hear today a consistent, I would say more of a traditional, consistent 36 touch campaign. We're building that foundation over time. Carolyn, you just kind of gave us even more ideas of how we can take that and evolve to the current state, especially up here in Portland Metro, where things have been closed down for a long time. They continue to be, and still creating those opportunities of connection, joy, and prompting that conversation of real estate to incredible stories of relationships, which has been the conversation that have fed a significant amount of business. So Carolyn, thank you so much for all of that value, that delivering of joy, those incredible ideas. I know our agents have been hungry for it. We really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much.
All right, you guys. Now, two incredible agents with very different but great stories feeding their business. We are going to wrap this up. Chris, take it away with our final presentation of today.
There we go. Now I'm unmuted. All right. So we're going to have a conversation about the book that you see in front of you on the screen, hopefully. And it's Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights. Many of you have already read it. We've had conversations about it, or you've listened to many of the interviews he's done on this topic. But I wanted to talk about it today in relationship to our business and 2021. And I pulled out just a few thoughts for us to sort of wrap our day up with here and start our week and our month of February off and headed into March with. Matthew McConaughey put together this book. And it's really a compilation of a lot of his journal entries. But what he found was there were moments and times in his life and his career and his personal world where he would hit what he refers to and has sort of coined as this phrase, green lights. Now, as you think about it in the definition of that word, we all like green lights, right? We all hate red lights, or yellow is the worst, right? It's telling you to slow down or to stop. In business, we want to hit all the green lights. In fact, how awesome does it feel when you're going down that road and you just timed it perfectly, right? And you hit green light after green light after green light after green light. And what Matthew McConaughey realized was, although that is his goal always, there were moments in his life where there were yellow lights and straight up red lights. And we can learn something from both the yellow and red, and we can also engineer the green. So here are just a few thoughts from him in his book that I took away. Early in the book, he said, green lights mean go. It means to advance, to carry on, to continue. And on the road, they're set up to give the flow of traffic the right of way. And when scheduled properly, more vehicles catch more green lights in succession. They say proceed. So engineered and architected properly, it actually creates the system that we use today, right? Those red and green lights, they orchestrate traffic, they keep things moving smoothly. Hopefully they eliminate most traffic jams or pileups. And the fact is in our business, we need to architect them in such a way that the business and the process and our clients and our people are hitting those green lights as well. Now, he said in our lives, these green lights are an affirmation of our way, right? It's this affirmation that, hey, this is working because we're hitting these green lights. Things are going well. This system is working. He said their approvals, their support, their praise, their gifts, their gas on the fire, their attaboys, and appetites. He said green lights are, it's money, it's worth, it's springtime, it's health, it's success, it's joy, it's sustainability, it's innocence, and it's fresh starts, right? This is straight out of his book. As human beings, we love green lights. They don't interfere with our direction. They're easy. They say yes and give us what we want. Some of us headed into the year with green lights. Some of us feel like we're still at a stoplight, right? But the fact is this is what we want to obtain, or this is where we want to get to. But he said green lights can also be disguised as yellow and red lights. A caution, a detour, a thoughtful pause, an interruption, a disagreement, indigestion, sickness, and pain. It could come to a full stop, a jackknife, an intervention, failure, suffering, a slap in the face, death. Like there are so many yellow and red lights that show up. And it's how we handle those yellow and red lights that will help us to move forward once those lights change color, or just bring us to a complete stop. He said, we don't like yellow and we don't like red because they slow us down. They stop our flow. They're hard. They say no. But sometimes they give us what we need. As we think back over the last 3, 6, 9, 12 months, it slowed us down, right? It stopped our flow potentially. They were hard. We heard Carolyn talk about how, well, we had a plan in place for 2020. And interestingly enough, almost everything she executed was not on the plan at the beginning of 2020, right? Did they slow her down? Yeah, I would say they did, right? Like we had to rethink what we were going to do. She shared openly what her goal at the beginning of the year was. Did we hit that goal? Well, no, most of us did not hit the goal. Why? Because we hit some yellow and red lights. But those yellow and red lights gave some of us what we needed, right? Gave some of us what we needed personally, professionally, from a time perspective, from a pace perspective. Matthew McConaughey said, catching green lights is about skill. Turning yellow and red into green is about skill. He said intent, context, consideration, endurance, anticipation, resilience, speed, and discipline. Those are the qualities or aspects that contribute to catching green lights. We're going to send out these slides, so don't worry about taking notes, but those are important words: intent, context, consideration, endurance, anticipation, resilience, speed, discipline. He said we can catch more green lights by simply identifying where the red lights are in our life and then changing course to hit fewer of them. We can also earn green lights, he said, engineer and design for green lights. We can create more and schedule them in our future through force of will, through hard work, through choices we make. You know, we talked about Galand's business, which now that database is green lights, right? He has a database filled with green lights, but that was engineered, that was designed, right? That was hard work, that was will, that was a lot of choices early on what he was going to do and then how he was going to build it. But interestingly enough, if we feel like we're stuck at just red lights, we haven't taken responsibility to engineer and design for the green lights. Catching green lights is also about timing. Now, he said it's the world's timing and ours. See, if everything happens to us, well, then we don't have any of our own timing. Will things happen to us? Absolutely. In the story, he talks about the death of his father. In the story, he talks about family struggles. In the story, he talks about a lot that happened to him, like that was the world's timing. But he also talks a lot about engineering his own timing. He said, when we're in the zone, on the frequency, and with the flow, that is our time. We can catch green lights by sheer luck, right? Time and unforeseen occurrence, because we're in the right time at the right place. We talk a lot about that in real estate. So much of real estate is luck, right? I know we teach strategy and we teach accountability, we teach activity, we teach skill, but so much of it is you took the step to put yourself in the right place at the right time, and you were there. He has a quote in his book that was in one of his journals. It's a Seneca quote. If you don't know which port you're sailing to, no port is favorable. If you're hitting all the green lights, but you're heading in the wrong direction, well, that's going to do you no good. Intention is incredibly important. It brings us back to one of those words earlier that I said, hey, that's an important word. See, we could be smooth sailing, but if we're not doing the right thing, we're saying the right thing. Many of us have no problem finding leads. Many of us have no problem getting in front of an opportunity, but the opportunity is not turning into a result or turning into business. Well, that means you're hitting all the green lights, but you may be going in the wrong direction. I love his perspective of preparation. He said that, interestingly enough, most people think he's a natural, right? He's a natural actor. He's a natural speaker. He's a natural, right? But he said, I come in prepared. I come in practiced. I come in strategic. He said, I'm a worker. I prepare everything. What's really funny is people make fun of me. Like, people that know me well make fun of me for how much I prepare. And the fact is I'm not a natural at anything, truly, but I come in prepared. I come in practiced. I come in strategic. I'm a worker. I prepare everything. So he said, so when I'm in that role, whether that's an actor or a father or a husband, I'm ready. And it looks like I'm winging it and it looks like I'm having fun, but I'm prepared always. My work is not when I am performing. My work is when I am prepared. Huge relevance for us today. This is a big concept later in his book, one of the most valuable ones. He said, be less impressed and more involved. I think it's easy to get impressed. There are social apps and there are entire companies that are built around impressing other people, right? Just count the number of Facebook posts or social posts. And the fact is we have built an environment and actually an industry, unfortunately, that is built on being impressed. But he said, interestingly enough, if we were just more involved, all of us would be much happier. Be less impressed and more involved. He said, we have a need to engage with resistance. We have to be willing to do the hard thing. That's been a common theme in some of our calls, right? We talked to a couple, well, I guess it was about a month ago, about how doing the hard thing now will show up easy later. Doing the easy thing now will bring us a harder life later. Sure enough, in his journals, consistently, he found when he went and chose the hard thing, easy showed up later. And we all need some time to think. We all need some time alone. He said the red light of solitude brings a green light to life. In a lot of his interviews where he's been talking about the book, he's shared that being, for someone like him, right, constantly in light and people wanting his time and being around a lot of people, he's a social individual. But he said the red light of solitude brings a green light to life. Middle of the book, he said, we all want a greater ROI on ourselves. Fact. There is a science to being satisfied. Look for themes in your life when you are happy, when you say things are going well, when you seem satisfied, when you feel like the ROI on yourself is high. And then he said, ask yourself, where are you? What are you doing? And what do you need to be there constantly? Right? When do you feel happy? When do you think things are, or do you say things are going well? When do you feel satisfied? Get there, right? Spend time there. He said you have to be keeping track of plays in the game of your life. So if we are always looking to get back to where we were, but we're not keeping track of the plays in the game of our life, we won't know how to get back there. We won't know what we did. That's why tracking and accountability is so high. That's why having a coach is so important, because they're able to say, hey, you experienced these results when you were doing this. It doesn't happen if you're in that moment and you say, hey, I like this. If we didn't track the plays of the game of our life to get there, we won't be able to repeat it. He said, look at those plays and play those plays, run those plays. So, and I'm going to switch gears here in just a minute. So as a wrap up, what he shared is we all want green lights. The whole book was about how to engineer and architect the green lights, what he did to get those green lights. The beginning of the book started, however, by him opening up a journal years later and realizing that what he wrote down that he wanted in life, almost every single one of them had happened. And it wasn't because he kept on revisiting, but he had set as an internal compass what was important to him, what green lights he had to hit. And then as he backward engineered, he realized that, gosh, I had actually engineered these green lights. I had learned things, I had done things, I had practiced things, I had stayed committed to things that led me through the yellow and the red lights that show up in life, but allowed me to truly focus on the green light. So that's what I wanted to share, especially, right, given this time of year as we head into 2021, dealing with some yellows, having had some reds, and really being able to engineer our greens.
I love it, Chris. That was awesome. Great book. I know we have some people disappointed that McConaughey was not on the call himself, but thank you for delivering that. Great book. So Chris, will you click actually to the next slide? There's just a couple of things we want to highlight as we close out today. First of all, remember that we are actually partnering with Ben Kinney Companies this year to bring you a master every single week, led by Via Williams herself, the general manager of the Ben Kinney Network. This is the lineup. Of course, this week there was a change. So tomorrow, instead of the listing presentation, it has changed to that divorce real estate with Laurel Starks. They will skip. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Yes, today at noon. We will skip next week due to family reunion, and then they will continue on their usual Wednesday. So please tap into those free to you incredible trainings. We'll continue to bring you updates and information, as well as include links for all of those. Chris, will you go to the next one? And then, of course, we didn't have a Master Series event in technically in February, but here it is, your Master Series event. Chris Suarez interviewing 6 masters to kick off family reunion with coffee conversations.
Let me just tell you guys, we sent out a registration link. Please register if you're going to show up. Don't if you're not going to show up. We can have 1,000 people and we're about halfway filled. So if you do want to listen in, please go ahead and register. Here's how this is going to go. They're going to be 20-minute interviews on one topic. We're going to talk about Sarah Reynolds. We're going to talk to Sarah and how she's built a business around relationships, but also how to keep relationships, how to keep our personal relationships while running a big business. We're going to talk to Dan Grieb about health. Many of you know him because he's recently been on a press tour with Chris, the first Special Olympics and Down syndrome person or human to actually complete a full Ironman. So we're going to talk to him about his personal journey of health, but also how he's now helping others. We're going to talk to Abe Shreve, arguably one of the best coaches in the country. He runs MAPS Business Coaching. He's a consultant, not a real estate coach, but we're going to talk to him about how do we continue to build our personal growth and focus on that. We're going to talk to Reed more about how to maintain our spiritual focus, right? How do we build spirituality into our business and our lives? And that is going to be a focus on purpose, on building purpose into our business and lives. And then we're going to round out a 20-minute conversation with probably one of the strongest couples in our company, Bo and Kimberman Kitty. They run brokerages, they run real estate offices, they run incredible development companies. They have done an incredible work with actually coming into towns and parts of DC and you'll hear their story, but incredible wealth builders through their true north of real estate. We're going to have a really cool conversation of how do we set rules and rhythms for wealth building. So we're going to talk about relationship, health, spirituality, personal development and growth, and wealth, all right before family reunion on Monday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time.
I love that. So you guys look for those links in our wrap-up email. Last question, somebody asked about the Big Penny trainings. Yes, they are recorded. Please register for them and you will get the recording after, and register for coffee conversations. You guys, that wraps up our State of the Industry for February. Thank you all so much for joining us. Have a wonderful, powerful day. Bye, guys.